All right, fellas. So today I'm going to get into training, some stuff that you've all heard of, elements of training that you know about, but we're going to get a little deeper into the weeds behind how and the what behind them. So you can hopefully get the most out of your time and your energy at the gym. And we're talking about intensity, rep ranges, training volume, tempo, how those things need to be addressed so you can get the most out of your workouts. Like I said, rather than always working harder, we need to work a little smarter. So the first one, intensity. Intensity is a funny thing because it's probably the hardest thing to teach somebody because everybody has different perceived levels of exertion, different pain tolerances. One guy's idea of an intense 10 out of 10 going balls out workout is another guy's idea of a lazy workout. And I've seen this from training guys in the gym for 15 plus years. It's crazy to see the difference of what people perceive as hard. And this is where actually being in the gym with the guy can really help because you can accurately gauge that and push them and see what their perceived level of intensity is. But all just to say, you guys need to learn to love the struggle and learn that your comfort zone, there's a whole nother level beyond that. Change your mindset from that's all I've got to thinking, when you think you're getting close to failure, you probably got another 30% in the tank and you're going to be fine. Because the research shows that for the most part, that when guys think that they're close to failure and their tanks are close to empty, the reality is they're probably at about 60, maybe 70% to actual failure. So we all have a lot more than we think we do. And the studies that I've seen show that you can push yourself a lot harder than you actually think. And every time you push yourself a little harder, you develop a new threshold. So like anything, the only way to increase that threshold is to push yourself beyond your current boundaries and what you think hard feels like now. And my hope is that a year from now, your workouts today or your old workouts, they look like a warm-up. They feel like a warm-up compared to what you're doing now. So try and continually push yourself beyond that comfort level. When you do, your body's going to adapt. And we're not just talking about muscles adapting. Your body sends out all sorts of signals when it's pushed like that. So push your cardio during those short, high intensity interval sessions, 3 to 4 times a week, short and quick, get in and out. We want you guys improving not just your muscle health, but your overall health, your VO2 max, because when you improve that stuff, you can work out harder and your workouts become a lot more efficient, effective, and you learn how to push yourself harder and harder when the whole system's working, not just your muscles. You need cardiovascular health too. If you guys don't like training, if the gym's something you're dreading, you better learn how to change that. Get excited about the goals. Get excited about the feeling you can get from a great workout. It's pretty tough to beat. Get excited about the improvements you're making. Learn how to spice up those workouts, track the weights, track the reps, track how those workouts are going. Sometimes that makes a big difference just to, get your head in the game. Track how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. It's through that kind of tracking that you can really begin to dissect what separates the good days from the bad days. And it might be what you ate the day before. It might be the way you slept the night before, but you don't really know unless you start keeping some tabs. And it's hard to make adjustments unless you measure the things that matter. And, I'm going to give you guys some workout routines and methods to help you continually find ways to train progressively harder and harder without injury, without just having to lift more. But all in all, training is self-respect to me, and it should be for you guys too. So show yourself some self-respect and take your workout serious. Things get interesting when people start talking about intensity versus volume or time in the gym. What's more important? And it's actually very dependent on a guy's experience, the amount of time he's been training in the gym, because the stronger you are and the stronger you get, the more volume you automatically place on the body and you endure through because you're lifting heavier weights. So often more experienced guys will actually reach a point where they actually have to lower the volume, the number of sets, because they're lifting so damn heavy. They're actually creating a lot more muscle damage with less sets. So the stronger you get, the more rest time you're probably going to need to take between sets to fully recover. A simple example of that, if you got one guy who's new to training, he might have a max bench press of, let's just say 100 pounds to keep it easy. That's his max output. And then you got another guy over here who's been training in the gym for years. His max bench press is maybe 400 pounds. So even though they're technically both maxing out the weights with, hopefully the heaviest, they can go with the best form possible. They're both going to failure. The guy that's lifting 4 times the weight, even though he's got a lot more experience, he will still require more rest between sets for the muscle to fully be ready for the next set. And he's going to likely need fewer sets to create a similar amount of muscle breakdown. The guy that's maxing out with 100 pounds can probably recover from that set and get into his next set within maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. The other guy, even though he has a ton more experience, been in the gym for maybe 20 years, he's still going to need more time. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's even 4 minutes to fully recover for that next set. So hope that makes some sense. Over the next many months, I'm going to give you guys numerous different styles of training programs. And some of these are going to focus more on lower volume, so going heavy with less reps, less sets, and some of the phases will be higher volume. Higher reps, more sets, and they both play a role. During those lower volume phases, your sessions should be short and sweet, making it even more important that you're putting everything into each of those sets during those workouts. I like to work in a lower volume phase every 2 to 3 months, and those phases last usually 3 to 4 weeks, with most sets during those lower volume phases going heavy and close to absolute failure. And these aren't like the higher volume workouts. There's no real point in leaving gas in the tank. Like, you should be going all out on that, and those workouts should be quick. Like I said before, and I say all the time, if you don't give your body a reason to grow, change, adapt, it's not going to. So next thing is tempo. How fast do we want to be moving weight during sets? Raising, lowering, eccentric, concentric. Now, tempo might be the least sexy thing I can talk about when it comes to training, but understanding it can seriously help improve your efficiency, your gains, your avoiding plateaus. It might actually be the most underrated variable in your training. Using various tempo schemes through sets has been shown to have a big impact on the micro trauma in the muscle, which is what we want for growth. And if your typical guy's workout, most guys are doing 8 to 10 reps, usually 3 sets. And most of these guys are doing, 1 rep's taking them 3 to 4 seconds to complete. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. That's the typical, but that is not going to work. It's shit. And you're not going to get far doing it that way. Not to mention, most guys don't control the weight properly during the eccentric portion of the exercise, the lowering of the weight. Rather, they like gravity takeover. We know that the body can handle a lot more weight, almost twice as much, on the downward portion of an exercise, of a rep. So the eccentric portion, we're a lot stronger. And because we're stronger on that eccentric portion, it means we should be utilizing that, using it to our advantage to create more muscle load, more muscle breakdown. And we can do it in a safer way when we focus on the eccentric portion and tempo, rather than constantly trying to up the weight, throwing the weight around. Most people are blowing their load on the concentric part of the rep, rather than slowing down, focusing more on that eccentric control, increasing breakdown, doing it that way, where you won't have to lift, as much. And most injuries happen going too heavy and on the concentric rep. So focus more on the eccentrics. We have far more potential for creating gains, growth on those eccentric reps. So that's something that just keep that in mind at all times, boys. Changing your tempo, slowing down those reps. Most guys, like I said, they're rushing them. 3 to 4 seconds a rep isn't going to cut it. Doing 10 reps in 25 or 30 seconds, like I see a lot of guys doing, it's wasting your efforts. Those reps should be closer to 7 or 8 seconds per rep. 3 seconds up on the concentric, 4 or 5 seconds down on the eccentric, which seems like an eternity when you don't normally train that way. So a full set should be taking you close to a full minute, not 25 seconds like a lot of guys. This gives you the benefit of creating way more tension and healthy muscle damage without needing to always go heavier with the weight, which is long-term going to be a lot more beneficial for your joints, your tendons, your ligaments. So I hope that makes some sense. Another thing we can do is we can speed up tempo to work more on power output, more than muscle growth. But explosive reps like that are good to work in once in a while, but they're more for athletic benefits. And for most of you guys with a specific purpose of just trying to look your best, look like a Greek god, and you're not, trying to improve your vertical and these types of things. That stuff's not going to be the focus in this program. We're just trying to look like a specimen and do it in the healthiest way possible. So hypertrophy is the main focus of most of these programs I'm going to put out. Not to say you can't work in some of that explosive stuff, but it is more for athletic improvement. Next, let's talk about rep ranges a bit. With most workout plans I give you, you're going to have 2 types of sets. You got rehearsal sets or warm-up sets. You'll hear me call them both things. And you got your working sets. Those warm-up sets or rehearsal sets, you're going about 60% of your max. You're not going anywhere close to failure. And you're doing, 2, maybe 3 of these, especially on that first exercise of the day. You're choosing that weight 60% to get some blood in that muscle, gauge how you're feeling, how strength is for that day before you dive into the heavier sets. These warm-up sets are not really meant to be tracked. They're more for the rehearsal to set the bar for the day. Like I said, get some blood in the muscle before you get into the heavy stuff. And it's been shown that those rehearsal sets, those warm-up sets are a lot more effective than actually stretching for a warm-up. The other sets you're doing should all be working sets. And the working sets mean you're going close to failure, if not absolute failure from time to time. And I should note, failure still means with good form. So if an exercise calls for 15 reps, that means you're getting 15 reps with form, not 11 reps and then the last 3 or 4 throwing the weight around with momentum. And if on a particular day you're not feeling very good, you slept like shit last night, you missed some meals, you can feel that you're not going to be able to push the weight and the reps that you did last week. Well, tone it down a bit, lighten the weight. And on the other hand, if you are feeling great, don't limit yourself. Like if you get to your 10 or 12 or 15 reps and you got more in the tank, keep it pushing and then up the weight next set. Don't limit yourself because your muscle isn't, counting reps. There's no magical number. It just knows what it feels. So I'll just say, don't place hard boundaries on your reps. If you're feeling good and your form is good, you're going to want to push it, especially in the, your first months. If you haven't been on a hardcore training program lately, you're likely going to be seeing some fast strength progression week to week, month to month, especially in the beginning. This, of course, slows down as we get bigger, stronger, more experienced. And we need to get a lot more creative in the ways things we can do to move the needle in the gym and avoid plateaus. And we'll talk about that in future coaching videos, but don't get hung up on reps like so many do. There's no magical number. Your muscles aren't, waiting for 10 reps to grow. They just know what they feel. So make sure the intention's there, the mind to muscle connection, and we're using controlled tempo, focusing on those eccentrics. That's what really matters. From 1 month to the next, I might actually have you doing the same exercise, but the rep range is the only real difference. So 1 month, I might have you doing 8 to 10 reps. The next month is 15 reps. And this approach is for a reason. Those rep ranges ensure that we're targeting a wider range of muscle fibers. I've said it many times and I'll say it again. One of the most important aspects of progressive overload is tracking. And it's easy to get lazy and stop doing it. I'm guilty of it at times too, but tracking with some training log is one of the most effective things that you can do to actually monitor and gauge where you're at. So I highly recommend you do that because what gets measured gets managed. All right, guys, hope some of that was clear. If you guys have questions, as always, you know where to find me. And let's crush this fucking week. And let's crush those fucking workouts. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.